Hello, this is Curt Pringle. Thank you for looking into the series Talking Issues, where we talk public policy issues and on a variety of topics. But this might not be necessarily a public policy issue, but it's one fun for me. So I hope you can bear with us. The Pringle family is a hockey family. And when Disney established the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, we started watching hockey regularly and have been hockey fans ever since. And fortunately, when I was mayor of Anaheim, both in 2003 and 2007, the Anaheim Ducks went to the Stanley Cup Finals, losing in 2003, but winning in 2007. And in that victory and through that hockey season, we were very fortunate to meet our friend Joe DiPenta and become fast friends. And today I have the pleasure of having him here in my office to talk about hockey and really professional sports in general. So welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Kurt. It's a pleasure to be here.
Glad you're here. You're not down here in Southern California very often, are you? I mean, you live now back up in Canada.
Yeah, so I'm here. Been here a few times this year so far, and going to come back again in the summer. Take my 10-year-old daughter to Disneyland, and my wife as well. We're gonna have some fun. But I always love being back here. It's one of my favorite places I've ever lived.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and we love you here, and you still have a lot of fans here. But you left hockey, professional hockey, in what year?
It was in 2011 was my final season as a member of the minor league affiliate team with the Anaheim Ducks, the Syracuse Crunch at the time.
Syracuse Crunch. Obviously in Syracuse, so you get closer to the snow and you get back up towards the Canadian border, huh?
It was a big contrast from Anaheim to go to Syracuse. And
Yeah.
Syracuse had the second most snowfall in their history, the winter that I happened to time it. So it was coming from SoCal, living in Newport Beach on the ocean, going to Syracuse, New York was a bit of a culture shock, but nothing I wasn't used to coming from Canada.
Yeah. So you were born in Canada and raised, grew up there, and um, I think it's interesting for people to understand to get to that level of professional sports. I mean, you started playing hockey when you were a young kid, right? I mean,
Yeah.
tell me what that evolution is.
So when I was 2 years old, there was a pond in behind our house, and I decided to tell my mom I'd like to get some skates, and I guess that's how I communicated to her. I was 2.5, and I'd like to try skating. Loved it.
Yeah. A 2-year-old. Yes.
2-year-old,
Right.
and was skating. Gravitate towards it. My mom put me into skating lessons, which I did not like, because there was an event at the end of the season that was like a on ice show, which was geared more towards figure skating type thing. So I had to wear leotards, and I told my mom that I never want to do that again because I'm never putting on leotards. But it was fun to learn how to skate. And my mom wanted me to stay out of trouble, so she put me into hockey, got me a hockey net for the basement. And my dad wasn't really a hockey player, but I saw the kids in the neighborhood, had lots of fun playing street hockey with them, would skate on the pond with them, and just seemed like a natural fit for me. I fell in love with it, and then I realized, hey, I'm not half bad at this. And you know what it's like when you're good at something, you want to do more of it. And I
Right.
just discovered a passion,
Right.
and my parents never planned for it. Again, it was just, let's keep Joe out of trouble, keep him focused, and
Right.
put him in hockey because that's what kids in Canada do.
Right. So you played hockey all the way through grade school and high school competitively. Is that
Yeah, I played. So in Canada, unlike the US and here in the United States, the schools all have hockey teams. In Canada, it's separate from the schools.
Oh, I see.
But I played competitive hockey all the way through. When I was 16, I went to prep school, high school in Boston, about 45 minutes outside of Boston in a town called Groton. And the team was good and had a good experience. And then I got scouted, ended up getting a scholarship to Boston University. Went there for 2 seasons and ended up playing major junior hockey in Canada after I was drafted to the NHL. It was a fast track to get to the pros. So I
Yeah.
did that in my hometown, and I started my 11-year pro career after that.
Really? So how many professional hockey players go to college
I would say
before they play hockey? I mean, unlike some other sports that college is really the kind of training ground for a lot of the professional, athletes to take that step up through the process. I mean, I think football, I would assume almost every football player in the NFL,
or basketball,
right?
really, unless they go right from high school. With hockey, NCAA would represent I would guess under 15%.
Really?
About 50% would come from the Junior Canadian Hockey League.
Hmm.
And then we would have 35% that would come from overseas, like Russia, Sweden, Finland, Czechia. But the Americans would represent more than 15%, but some of the Americans will go and play in junior hockey in Canada or for the national junior program, what have you. So not all of them go the NCAA route. But yeah, it's Americans are starting to tip the scales. USA Hockey has really come a long way over the years. They're producing some really quality players and world class players.
Is that players coming through college or through the junior hockey, funnel?
It's both.
Yeah.
I would say of those players that play in the NHL that are American, I would say at least half of them are going through the NCAA, and then some of them are good enough where they'll go and play high school for the national men's USA team, and then some more of those will actually come to Canada and play junior hockey, depending on who their agent is and what they're telling them what they should do.
Right.
The NCAA is a longer route, so if you're going NCAA, you're going there for 4 years. A lot of times you're not even getting there and playing until you're 20. So you come out when you're 24. And now if you're fast tracking it, you can play in the NHL at 18.
Yeah.
So the guys that are really elite are usually pushed towards not NCAA. They're usually pushed towards junior hockey in Canada. And a lot of guys that do go NCAA, they'll play one season and then they'll leave. Like, Eichel, who played for the Vegas, he went to Boston University, my alma mater. He only went there one season because he was an elite player and he left.
Right. I mean, the Ducks have had some very young teen stars. I mean, when did Cam Fowler start?
He was 18?
He was 18 when he was on the ice for the Ducks.
Yeah.
Yes, you played with him.
No, I missed him. He came in
that
after
right?
me, but yeah, he's
Oh,
still
really?
there, still
He's
doing
still
his
there.
job, and he's fun to watch. He's been a
Doing a
good,
great
solid
job.
player.
Right. So you were a defenseman. I mean, some people would wonder why you would pick that spot. So why would you be a defenseman?
Well, I didn't pick it. It was given to me.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Right. Well, but also a lot of defensemen are the fighters. So, and you are always known as the gentle duck, not the fighting duck. So,
Well, Timo Solani nicknamed me the gentleman. And he always said, "Oh, there's Joe DiPenta, the gentleman." And I, as a player, I did my best to be hard to play against. That's how I got to the NHL, but
Right.
it didn't come naturally to me. I had a mother that I think beat that out of me when I was a kid in a nice way.
so she got the fighting done.
Yeah,
early,
yeah,
right?
she got the fighting done early. I remember there was a time when I was playing minor hockey, like I was 13 years old, and somebody pushed me on the ice, and I turned around and I was going to clock him, which was my natural instinct, and the guy probably deserved it. And my mom yelled from the stands and said, "Joey, what are you doing?" And I turned to my mom, and I was so embarrassed. It was like the whole rink was staring at her, and she instantly knew that she had spoken, that she shouldn't have said that. Apologized for it afterwards, but I just was I think it was just protective. And then when I finally played junior hockey in Canada, where they allow fighting, and I can, if you don't mind, I'll tell you a quick story about a fighting story.
Of course.
So I was playing junior hockey in my hometown, my first game in front of my hometown crowd, and I decided I was going to get this fight out of the way because it felt like it was looming over my head for 4 or 5 years. And I was a bigger kid.
That you had never fought.
Never fought before. I didn't grow up in a tough neighborhood, thankfully, and I didn't experience fighting off the ice. But on the ice, I knew it was part of the game, and so I was going to have to. If my goal was to play in the NHL, I knew that I was going to have to develop in that area. So my first game, I thought, okay, I'll get it out of the way, and I look for an opportunity. I get into a fight. Well, the next day, the newspapers, my picture was on the front page of the sports section in my hometown, and I was so excited to be in my hometown. And then I was so excited when my name was in the paper, and the headlines of the sports section with my picture on it said, "Those hands weren't made for fighting." And so that was really tough for my ego at the time. And so for the rest of that season, I shied away from it because I was afraid of losing, and I just had a lot of unnecessary shame from it. And it's just because you're 20 and you don't really know how to handle that sort of thing.
Right.
And then my first professional team was the Philadelphia Flyers organization, and fighting is promoted there. My first game, got my nose broken in a fight, and then it was 3 more months. Finally, my mother came to visit, and I was ready to quit. I was so discouraged. My play was getting less, and I wasn't playing much. And a lot of that was because I was intimidated because of the fighting. And so when I said to my mom, I said, "Mom, she said, Joey, how's it going?" And I said, "Mom, not so good. They want me to go out there and fight." And what I thought she was going to say was, you just come home, dear, and after the season's over, this will be behind us, and they're just bad people here, and they don't, you shouldn't have to fight. And what she said to me, to my surprise, was, well, Joe, I guess you better start fighting. And so my mom, when she called me out, I thought, okay, well, I guess I have to face this issue. And that was what I learned, was when you deal with an issue, it's really not as bad as you think it is.
Right.
And it wasn't that bad. And I was in a fight a couple games later with that encouragement, and I actually won. And
So how do you define winning?
well, I was on top.
Oh,
I was on top.
all
And I
right.
fell on top, and that was over. And
Well,
I got a
then
couple
I might
shots
be able
in.
to fight because I can always fall on top of somebody. But no, how much of fighting in hockey is fake or preempted or just lured or there for the purpose of whipping up the fans, or as opposed to anger, right? I mean, I think a lot of people look at fighting in hockey and think it is what people otherwise might be an angry attitude towards the other and want to go after them that way. And I don't necessarily know if that's all what's behind fighting in hockey, but
Well, in over the years, in the back up 50 years ago, fighting there was a lot more of it than there is today, and it's really gone out of the game. But there was a lot more stage fights over the years where guys would two guys in the team would almost preemptively before the game would start know they were going to fight each other. So it had nothing to do with emotion.
Right.
It was a show,
Right.
and that was the way it was when I was playing. Nowadays, guys that are fighting, I believe, are really just mad at each other, and there's an intensity to it. Now there is, I would say, a third of the time it's to try to shift the momentum in the game, where the game isn't going as well as you'd like it. So you go out there and try to instigate something. Sometimes it just works that somebody else wants to instigate back, and then a fight breaks out.
Right.
So it's part of the game. I like that it's part of the game. I wish I had played in this area where it's less fighting than when I was playing.
Yeah.
But
you're good at the less fighting.
I'm good at the less fighting. I think it was Brian Hayward, with the commentator of the Ducks, said, "Joe DiPenta, not a fighter, long fuse," and that's how I was just described. And I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
I had a
there's
long fuse.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong. So describe your professional career in a abbreviated back of the hockey card, the description of where you played and when you did that.
So I had 174 games in the NHL and 32 additional games in the playoffs, which I'm proud of. Scored 6 goals, a handful, I don't know how many assists. I wasn't a goal scorer or a point getter. Scored my second NHL game in my last NHL game, so I had good bookends on my NHL career. I was a stay-at-home defenseman, usually the 6th or 7th on the roster, so I was played on the third line. And I was a role player. I did whatever it took to help the team win. My job when I played for the Ducks was to give rest to our 2 Hall of Fame defensemen, Scott Niedermayer and Chris Pronger, who played on separate lines. So my job was to play 12 to 15 minutes a night, make sure that the other team didn't score when I was on the ice, so that our 2 amazing top defensemen could get back out there and dominate the game. And the team knew that they could trust me. I played a pivotal role, and a lot of players couldn't execute that role as well as I did. So I earned it, and I'm proud that ended up being my role. Now, before I turned pro, I was the star player of the team. So I had to go from the star player to a role player.
Right.
But I was happy to do that, and I learned my way into how to do that well, and my name's on the Stanley Cup because of it.
Right.
Also was privileged to win a Calder Cup in the American Hockey League in my second season in the American Hockey League with the Chicago Wolves. So it was another big honor to have won. Both times I was in a final professionally, was able to come out on top, and I'm proud of that, and I'm thankful that it didn't have any regret making it that far.
Right. Yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I do think it's interesting to look at you and to see your career. So you were 3 seasons with the Ducks.
Yeah.
Right. And winner of a Stanley Cup, which is pretty spectacular. Actually, today, I don't think I've ever seen you wear your Stanley Cup ring before, but you had a event you were at earlier today, so you had that on. So you may hold that up closer to your face so people see that thing. And um, the tell me, what are your memories of 2007 and winning Game Five, which the Ducks won in the Stanley Cup Finals, and had won 4-1 against the Ottawa Senators. So, what are your most vivid memories about that significant accomplishment?
Sure. So I'll explain the abbreviated version of the playoff run. We played the first round against Minnesota Wild, won that one easily, 4-1. Second round, similar, 4-1 against the Vancouver Canucks. It wasn't much of a well, it was a tough series, but not so much. And then we got to the really challenge was playing against the Detroit Red Wings in the semifinals. They arguably a better team than we were. They had a lot of weapons. I think on paper they were actually probably better than we were. Didn't have our toughness, but they didn't need to play tough because they had the puck the whole game. And it felt like we chased them around all over the ice, every
For some
game.
reason, that always bothers me because when they wear their red colors, they look so swarming. And that those years with the Red Wings sitting up in the stands, and it always felt they were occupying much more space
Yeah.
than us and our nice white or black jerseys. But
That's a neat observation. That's
Yeah.
how it felt like on the ice.
Yeah.
It felt like they always had the puck on their stick, and so we were chasing them around, so it wasted a lot of your energy. Well, we were playing in that series. We ended up lucky and split the series in Detroit. They had 2 home games to start off, and we won one, which we were thankful for. Coming back home, thinking, okay, let's win at home. They beat us 6-0 at home. When you lose 6-0, let alone in the playoffs, where you're in front of your hometown fans, like that is demoralizing. Like we were embarrassed, and then on top of that, our star defenseman Curt Pringle got suspended at the end of the game. So now going into Game 4, we were down our star defenseman, one of our star defensemen, and we just got embarrassed. But miraculously, we won the game, and we came back out and we performed well, won the game. So now we're back in the series, and now unfortunately for me, I was because Chris was hurt. Our other defenseman came in and he got the game-winning goal. So because now he's got some positive momentum, he's happy to be back in the lineup. I'm now the odd man out going back to Detroit, and so I'm watching the next 5 games from the stands. Well, that game was just the weirdest game. We were losing 1-0 the entire game. Our goalie John Sebastian Chiguera was just playing amazing. They were out shooting us 2-1. We had no momentum, hardly any shots. Nothing was going really our way at all. And then in the third period, with not too many minutes to go, I don't remember exactly the timing, their player got called for a penalty. And when you look at the replay, there was no infraction whatsoever. The referee saw our player fall, but it wasn't because of any contact, and just reacted and called a penalty. So we went on the subsequent power play and pulled our goalie, and with a 6-on-4, we scored a goal to tie the game up. And then in overtime, shortly into overtime, their defenseman whiffed on a pass. The puck just stood there, and then you don't leave that to Timo Solani, and that's what happened. He went in, scored a goal on Dominik Hasek. We won that game, went back home, won the series. Just almost stole the series from the Detroit Red Wings. The next year, of course, they went on to win, and they got their glory with the Stanley Cup. But that was our year, clearly. The gods were on our side. The hockey gods were on our side. And then in the finals, it was another 4-1. Yeah. But the cool part for me in the finals was when I was a healthy scratch for the first 3 games. Curt Pringle thankfully got suspended again, and I got back in. And then when I came in for Chris, I just had the weight of the world on my shoulders from just being in the Stanley Cup Finals, being in Canada. The game was in Ottawa. Family was all there. But what really helped me through it was knowing I was helping a teammate out who felt really badly about being suspended. I played the best game of my career. And Chris would say he said to me, pulled me aside, he was so thankful for my performance in that game because he felt so badly that he had let the team down. And then when I came in and stepped in, not that I filled his shoes at all, but I just had a really strong game, and then our team won the game, and not necessarily all because of me. It wasn't that way. I helped in my own way. And we were able to get through that game, come back home, and win the Stanley Cup. So it was just
exciting.
Nice journey.
Well, and you know this, but I was at every one of those games, and very exciting. to be one in the playoffs, but two in a Stanley Cup playoff. The mayor, the mayors always bet with the mayors from the competing cities,
Oh,
and
nice.
that mayor of Ottawa. We were on a big conference call doing it was just a phone call, not a Zoom. There wasn't things like that back then. So we're going through what we're going to bet, and whatever it was, I offered something, he offered something, and he said, okay, how about if the losing mayor's team, the mayor shaves his head? And hey, I think I like my hair really, and there's very few physical features that I like, but my hair is one. And everybody on his side started laughing. So I had never seen a picture of him, so I said, no, I don't think we'll do that, and everybody laughed. Of course, come to find out, he's this bald-headed guy that was really trying to set me up. So Anaheim didn't fall for any of that stuff.
Well,
But
that's good to
no,
know.
no, I do remember one of the very first games though of that last playoff. I think the first one at home. Governor Schwarzenegger came out with, and of course, I have a very fond and close relationship with Governor Schwarzenegger, and he came out in cowboy boots that had a steel heel. And I thought to myself, and I talked to his advanced people, he's going to fall down with that steel heel on that ice, but he didn't. He's much more graceful than I would have been, but he made it through that. So you retire from hockey. You retire at 32, professional hockey. You focus since you're 2 years old on that goal. You achieve it. You win the Stanley Cup. I mean, what is the mindset of someone in professional sports who works so hard for that ultimate success? You achieve it, and then you have to look and at the age of 32 on what the next chapter of your life is.
Yeah, it was a tough time. The last 3 seasons in my career, I knew that the end was coming at some point. I wasn't sure exactly when. So you start to think about, well, what am I going to do after this is over? This is what I've done my whole life since I was 2 years old, skating in the ponds, and my dream was to play in the NHL. Now that's clearly off in the distance. So it's difficult. You're trying to reinvent yourself. I'm sure people that have been in the military and they come out of service, they have that same identity issue of like they've always been in the military, and that's what it felt like as a professional athlete. This has been part of my identity for so long. I'm so interesting to talk to, and I meet people at parties and say I play for the Ducks or I'm in this team or that team, and then that was what hit me is when it was over and there was nobody calling me anymore to say, hey, like, could you come play for us? And so it's a lonely time, really lonely. You kind of try to figure out who you are, and unfortunately, it's hard not to. You have a lot of your identity wrapped up in what you do instead of like who you are
Right.
as a person. So I had to go through that, and it was hard. I went back to university, got a degree, thankfully. That was good. Because it was a hard decision to make as a mature student, and had some pride around going back and getting an undergraduate degree. But I'm really thankful today that I did that. And then I got involved in some passion projects, things that I was passionate about. Luckily, I had to create an event here in fundraising for the Children's Hospital of Orange County, raising money for kids with cancer, and then I ended up becoming an executive director with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, helping kids that have cancer.
Yeah.
So it was a really
In
nice
Canada.
segue in Canada.
Back in Halifax. So you got your communications degree at Long Beach State, and then um, got connected with Leukemia Lymphoma Society in Halifax, and then moved back there where your family was
Yeah,
with your wife Jessica and Chloe.
yeah, that's right. My daughter was only 10 months old, born in California,
Right.
moved back there. So it was a difficult transition, but it was also nice to be close to home when I was going through it.
Right.
Familiar people and
And your mother giving you more anti-fighting advice. So that's
exactly. Yeah, so it was good. It was a really rewarding. I'm still actually involved with them. They just invited me to be the chair of the big event back there to help them fundraise money, and that's a big honor to kind of now go full circle with it, of being like a
That's
staff
awesome.
person to now being a volunteer for them. And so it's really rewarding to help people. And that was what I enjoyed most about that role, was to help people and to build something. And I learned a lot too about the business world, ironically, in nonprofit, and it's a business like anything else. And
Right.
yeah.
And one of the reasons you're down here today in Orange County, I know you're a part of a conference and you're working with EOS, entrepreneurial operating system, and very interesting stuff. But from a perspective of a business person, hearing kind of this refocus on business that you were able to share today was really interesting and uplifting. And maybe you could quickly, say what you're doing now through that.
Okay, sure. So, the type of clients I'm working with have freedom from their business. They're able to grow their business 18% year over year on average. They have time for taking a 6-week vacation where they can leave their business, and they've got a culture where everyone loves working there. And so it's fun to work with clients that are able to experience that. The system that I help entrepreneurs implement is an operational and strategic planning process that we equip them with some tools and disciplines to help them execute that operational plan so they can get more of what they want from their business, and help them overcome the frustrations that most entrepreneurs face, which is they just have a lack of profit or control, or there's a frustration with their people, and they feel like they're stuck and they can't break through to the next level of growth, or that everything they've tried just doesn't seem to work. So being able to, again, help people. I'm passionate about entrepreneurship, and I think entrepreneurs make the world a better place, and they're always improving the world, and it takes a lot of guts to be an entrepreneur. So I'm able to work with people I admire, and the way I approach it is really from a professional athlete standpoint. Is I'm helping them create a high performance team at the leadership team level, and I really use professional sports analogies to do that. And then I want them to create professional high performing teams throughout the rest of the organization. And so it's really combining the EOS through the framework of being a professional athlete and being disciplined, focused, and accountable, just like you would if you were training for to try to play in the NHL.
Right. Understanding the powers of that team and how every piece is important and how you need to make every piece important.
Yes.
Yes. Well, how nice it was for me to be able to spend the day with you today, Joe, and have you come by and record this and to share a few thoughts. So thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks, Curt. My pleasure.